Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. In today's video we will be looking at part of the CrossFit box from Hack the Box, and in specific the cross-site scripting part. Let's get straight into it. So first things first, we did some enumeration and we found that there were two subdomains, gym-club.crossfit.hackthebox and ftp.crossfit.hackthebox. Now, on ftp.crossfit.hackthebox we just found this default Apache page, so that's of no use to us. However, the gym-club.crossfit.hackthebox looks like this. It looks like a fitness website, I suppose, where you can follow classes and all that kind of stuff. So that is obviously the point where we want to start looking. Now this page has this website has a blog, and on this blog we can read an article, for example, and that will lead us to this page. Now if we scroll down on this page, we see that you can comment on articles, and this is some place where we have user input. So that's interesting. Let's see if our comments appear on screen, and then maybe we can go for a reflected XSS that way. So my name is Pink Draconian, my email will be pink@pink.com, and then my phone number, let's just take 123, and let's try XSS question mark. We're gonna post that comment, and it says comment submitted. Your comment has been successfully submitted and will be evaluated by a moderator. Thank you for posting. Okay, so it seems that our comments are not directly being put on the page. However, they need to be evaluated by a moderator. That would mean that if this XSS triggered, or in this case we didn't even try XSS, but if an XSS would be possible, then we wouldn't be able to see the alert. So this is a blind XSS. So let's try that out. Let's go for a blind XSS. So I'm going to type these details again, and then we're going to go for script. And our script, we have to close that tag. And I'm going to give it a source of HTTP, and then my IP address, which is 10.10.14.13, and the port I'm going to pick 5555 and /test. So that's my payload, and now obviously if that triggers, if an administrator looks at my comment and he sees it, then we will get a ping back, or hopefully it will connect back to our IP address at port 5555. However, we obviously need to view that. So let's start a Python simple HTTP listener on that port. So Python 3-m for module, then HTTP dot server 5555. Now we are serving HTTP on that port, and now we can try to send this request, and hopefully we will get something back. So post comment, and okay, did that work? No, it says XSS attempt detected. And it says that a security report containing your IP address and browser information will be generated, and our admin team will be immediately notified. Okay, interesting. So there is some kind of firewall that we would need to bypass. So let's go into Burp Suite and get that request into there. So let's just do script here to make it easier. Okay, start our burp listener on Foxy Proxy and get our intercept on, post that comment, and let's see if we receive it here, and yes we do, and let's send that to the repeater. Okay, so I'm just gonna drop that request because in repeater we have this. I will turn off the intercept, and if we send this, we should, if we search for XSS, find XSS attempt detected. Okay. Now, in a previous video by my colleague Pascal, we have already covered how you can try to find out which tags in which HTML tags are allowed in your XSS by using the burp intruder. So in this case, you could do all of that again, but you will find out that there is no easy way to bypass this firewall, and even if you do, there won't be any XSS. So that's a bummer. However, we need to keep the comment in mind that we saw earlier. And that comment is this XSS attempt detected. A security report containing your IP address and browser information will be generated, and our admin team will be immediately notified. Now, what does that mean? It means that some information from us, our IP address and our browser information, will be shown to the admin team. What if there is actually XSS there? What if we were to change our IP address to script alert 1, if the admin team would review the security report, they would see an alert? Is that possible? Well, yes. However, how are we going to input our user information here, our XSS payload? We could try to spoof our IP address, but that is very difficult. And I don't know how we could spoof it to be an XSS payload. But this also mentions browser information, and that's simpler. Because our browser information, what is that? Well, let's go to this request here. Our browser information is our user agent, because here it says Mozilla, and so on. If this user agent is being taken and put in a report that is, for example, a web page that an admin will view, and if that is not properly sanitized, then perhaps XSS is possible there. So let's try that out. In our user agent, I'm going to say, okay, open a script tag. We're going to close that script tag as well. And then I'm going to source that script tag from http:// my IP address on port 5555. And let's try to get the file test to see if that works. So, okay, currently we didn't receive anything on our listener. Let's send this and see if that works. And wow, we get a request back to /test from the IP address of this box. So what happened here? First of all, we triggered the firewall because we had in our message an XSS payload, and that triggered the firewall. When the firewall is triggered, it is configured to notify the administrators. So it takes some information from us, such as our IP address and our user agent, and it then shows that information to the admins. Now, that information is user input. We can change our user agent, so it should be properly sanitized before being shown to the admins. However, that was not the case here. It wasn't properly sanitized, and that is how we got this XSS. In the next bit, we're going to look at what the impact is of this XSS and how we could perhaps escalate this to an RCE. Alright, let's see if we can escalate this, but first, what did we find? We have an XSS. We can execute JavaScript on the server. Now that is different from a normal XSS where our browser is the one executing the JavaScript. In this case, the server is executing it. And we can, for example, make calls to a different place. And that is also called an SSRF, a server-side request forgery. We forge requests for the server. And why is that a vulnerability? Well, the server can have a whole different view of a network because we are attacking a network from the outside. So the firewalls can more easily block things. However, now we already have a way in the network, and from the server we can do things within the network from the inside, and that might give different results. For example, a 403 page might not return 403 anymore, stuff like that. And in this case, one peculiar thing is this ftp.crossfit.hackthebox page that just shows the Apache default page. Does it show the same page for the server? Well, let's find out. Let's try to perform an SSRF and see if we can view the actual page of ftp.crossfit.hackthebox. And for this, we're first going to have to modify our payload here, because currently we are including a script that doesn't exist. We're just including test, which doesn't exist. Now I can change this to payload.js. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to host a payload.js file on my file server here that is going to be executed then. So let's start with writing that. And so I'm going to save a file as payload.js. Alright, and now we can start writing some code. So what is it that we want the server to execute? Well, first we're gonna have it make a request. This request is gonna be an XML HTTP request. So that object has been created. Now we can set different things on it. So for example, we can say things that are going to happen when this request happens. For example, on request, we can set the onload, what happens once that is done loading. And this onload, we can set that like this. And for example, send back. Now what is send back? Well, send back is a function that we will define here, send back. And this function, it will go and do something. In this case, so the goal here is we are sending a request to an internal service. That service is going to return something. When that returns something to the server, we want the server to send that back to us. And we know that we can do that by setting the location, the page location to be HTTP and then 10.10.14.46, so my IP address, port 55555, and then we can say, okay, result, and eventually our result will be in this dot response, which is of the request object, the response. Okay, so, or the response text rather. However, this response text will contain spaces, weird characters, all of that, so I'm going to do a B2A here, which is going to convert the response text to base64 so that we know that we can actually properly get it. And that is our callback here, what happens when the request has successfully been received. But now we need to actually craft the request that is going to be made internally. And for that I'm going to do request dot and then open. What are we going to open? We're going to open a GET request to a URL, and this URL was going to be ftp.crossfit.hackthebox. So let's wrap that in HTTP. So we're gonna make a call internally to ftp.crossfit.hackthebox. That looks good. Now what I still need to set is my request.withCredentials, and I need to set that to true. Now, what is that with credentials? That is making sure that cookies and all of that kind of stuff is also being sent along. Else you might have some issues, so just always include that. All right, that is our request created, and I believe the only thing left for us to do is to do a request.send. And if all is well here, this script should come back to us with some data. But let's find out. All right, in burp, send that request. And immediately we see that payload.js was gotten, and we now see a bunch of base64 here, and that is obviously amazing. Now we can echo this and base64 decode it, and we'll see that's HTML, so let's just quickly put that into ftp.index. Now that we have our ftp.index file here, we can view it, and we see that this is an FTP hosting account management. So there seems to be a way to create a new account, to go to /accounts/create. All right, interesting, and that is it. I guess we can even view that in Firefox. But because we are root, we can't, so I'd have to open a new window here and do Firefox ftp.index. Yeah, and that opens the account management, which looks like this, pretty empty. However, this create new account is very interesting here. So let's make a request to create new account. Obviously, I can't click this because that won't be found, because only internally you can view this. So let's make that internal request. So I'm going to modify my script here, the payload.js, and I'm going to say, well, okay, to account/create. Let's double check accounts/create. All right. And let's make that request. Send it here. And we immediately get some output back. This is incredibly fast, so I guess this admin just has the page open and reloading it, which is nice for us. Let's echo that base64 out again, and base64-d into ftp.create. Now ftp.create contains this here. It has an add new account. All right, and this is a form. Let's check this out in Firefox as well. Firefox ftp.create. Yeah, and this looks like this. So you can add a new account by entering a username and a password and then submitting the form. And the form is a post request that you submit to ftp.crossfit.hackthebox/accounts. Okay, I also see an input here, a token. And this token is CSRF. So what does that mean? That means that this token needs to be supplied when you create the account. So it's good that we have that from this. And that's also a reason why you would need your with credentials to be set to true, because that might be stored in cookies and such. Alright, then we have our username input field that we need to supply, our password field, and then we have the submit field, or the button type submit that does the submitting. Alright, we need to make this post request, right? So let's try making the post request. And for that we will need to modify our payload.js script. So what I'm quickly going to do, just so we don't mess up here, is copy payload.js to payload2.js. So that we can properly edit things here without messing it up. Now how are we going to submit a form? Well, we can make a variable form data, and this variable will be a new form data object. And now we can set things. We can do form data.append. And now we can just set values. So I want to first set the token. I'm going to set the token to be obviously the token that we received from our create here. So that is this one. All right. Then I am going to do a form data.append, and this time I'm going to set the username, and let's create a new user called Pink Draconian. Then let's create a password. Actually, let's also have our password be Pink Draconian, because that is very secure, obviously. And now lastly, I believe we need to set submit to be something. I think Pink Draconian is fine, so let's keep it at that. And that is our form data object completed. Now we need to change the request type to post, and this needs to be a post request to just /account. Let's double check that. Yeah, accounts. Okay, so to /accounts with credentials true, and we need to send that, but this time we need to send that with our form data. And I believe that is all we need to do here. So let's try that out. Let's go back to burp. Send this to repeater again so I can quickly change it to be payload2.js and send that along. Alright, payload2.js has been gotten, but we are not really getting anything back. So that means that there might have been a mistake in my code. So let's double check this. The username, the password. Oh, the name needs to be pass, not password, so that's already a small mistake. Okay, and I found the issue here. The issue was that in our open we need a third argument that is set to true. Now what does that mean? That true is for the async, so it means that this will be asynchronous, else it wouldn't work. So yeah, make sure you set that to true. Alright, now let's see if we can run this. And we get our payload2.js, and then we get base64 back. So let's take that base64 and let's echo it out, and base64 decode it, of course. That looks like HTML. Let's quickly see what this says. This says account created successfully. Let's actually view this in HTML. In Firefox, because that will be nicer. So ftp.account, and then let's Firefox ftp.account, and here we can see our user that has been created. There are more controls here that we don't need to be worried about at this moment, because we know that we created a user for this FTP. Now, that is cool. Let's see if we can now log into FTP using those credentials. So let's see here, FTP, and then ftp.crossfit.hackthebox. Okay, and the name is going to be Pink Draconian, and that is not allowed because non-anonymous sessions must use encryption. Okay, let's Google how FTP encryption. And we see here FTPS. So let's try to use FTPS. See if that is something. FTPS. I don't have FTPS on this machine. Do I not? No. Okay, apparently not. Okay, so FTPS won't be it then. FTP encryption, let's do Kali behind it because I'm on a Kali machine. Here, FTPS, and here they are saying things like LFTP -u and an IP address. Okay, let's try that out. LFTP. Can we use that? LFTP. Yeah, okay, that's a utility that we can use. Then the username is Pink Draconian, and the server is going to be ftp dot obviously crossfit dot hackthebox. Let's see if that works. We need to enter a password, which was Pink Draconian because we set that. And now can we do dir? No. Fatal error, certificate verification not trusted. Let's see if we can Google that. This is how I usually solve problems when solving challenges. Just start Googling, and I have already visited this when I tried to solve it myself. And here it talks about SSL verify certificate to false, and here it says set SSL verify certificate false. So let's do that. This needs to be set. And now let's try dir again. It says connecting, sending commands. Will we get something back? Login incorrect. Okay, weird. Did I make a mistake while typing my password? Pink Draconian. Now I need to set this to false again and then do dir. And this time I get the output. I must have typed Pink Draconian incorrect. And this output is interesting because we've just moved on from our SSRF and we have some new access. Now, for completeness sake, we are going to be looking at this new access that we have and getting RCE in just a second. And now, lastly, let's see if we can actually go for an RCE on this machine. So, we have these 4 folders here, of which the permissions, we have write permissions perhaps over development tests. These permissions are different, so we might be able to write there. That's something to check. Besides that, we see FTP, gym-club. Those are subdomains. HTML might be the www subdomain. Is development-test also a subdomain then? And if we can write there and then fetch the files, will that give us anything? But first of all, let's see if we can just access this subdomain from the web. So let's change it up here, paste this in, and let's see if we can access that, and we get a server not found. Okay, so perhaps that is not a subdomain, perhaps it is. But let's first of all see if we can write in development/test. All right, are there any files in here? No, there aren't. Let's create a file. We know that the server is running PHP, so let's just do ex.php, so exploit.php, and then in here we can write a quick PHP exploit. So system, in the simplest web shell there is, from the get parameters, get cmd, and execute that, and then close our PHP tags here. So we'll save that, and let's try to execute that. ex.php, I'm gonna try to upload that, so put ex.php, file transferred. It seems to exist right now. Cool, okay. So we've just uploaded that file. Is that file an actual subdomain? Let's find out. So in our initial payload here, where we were making the GET requests, I'll change this to development-test.crossfit.hackthebox /ex.php $cmd equals ID. And now, if all goes well, we should be able to get RCE. So I'm gonna send my request. That's gonna fetch payload.js and execute it. Up here we see that coming in. We see our result base64 here. Let's do let's echo this out, base64-d, and we see that we have RCE in this case because we get our the result of the ID command back. And that is super, super, super amazing. So this was the CrossFit box of Hack the Box, or at least a very short part of it, because we only did the beginning of the box. The box goes way beyond this, but we were mainly interested in the XSS part here. This also shows the dangers of having XSS that is executed on the server side and how easy it is to get other vulnerabilities that way. Now, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any remarks, comments, questions, feedback, anything, leave them down below in the comments, and I hope to see you back for another video some other time. Take care, guys.